Probably one of the most renowned sax players, and you in the world of jazz, you're going to love this. Bobby Watson in the studio, down the hallway, in Studio A with Jon Hart, live here on the bridge.
You know, I've quietly wanted to do this interview for a long time. Finally have the opportunity. Bobby Watson in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, John. Great to be here.
You know, it's always about waiting for that right opportunity, and you've got a big show coming up a week from Saturday, kicking off Jazz at the Gem. It formerly was Jammin' at the Gem.
Yes.
And you're going to be directing the American Jazz Orchestra, which is 18 pieces.
Yes, it is, including me.
Yeah, that's a pretty good size group.
Yes, full rhythm section with guitar and trumpets and trombones and saxophones.
And you're going to have Ernie Andrews in for vocals.
Yes. We've been friends for quite a while, and he's also been my mentor and big brother and mentor, whatever you could call him.
So you're going to be doing some of your stuff and some of his stuff and some Jay McShann on top of that?
Yes, we're mainly going to be doing some of his stuff and, like you say, some of my compositions and maybe a little bit of Benny Moten, something like this.
So if you, if you want to be famous, you need to buy a ticket and go to the show because it's going to be recorded for posterity.
We hope so. Yes, we do.
Yeah, so you need to work out your creative shout out so that you can hear yourself on the record later.
Forever, yeah.
It's just going to be an amazing series. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that as time goes by. But it all gets started a week from Saturday, and people can get their tickets through Ticketmaster.com. We'll give you all the information as we go along. You're a native son.
Yes. I was born in Lawrence, Kansas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've always kind of called it, so you were born in Lawrence. Were you raised there?
I was raised in Lawrence and Bonner Springs, and then Kansas City, Kansas. And then through the year, we moved to Minneapolis.
It always
5 years.
It kind of feels like if you're from Lawrence, maybe you say you're from Lawrence. If you're from Bonner Springs, maybe you just say you're from Kansas City.
Well, that's what I did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Kansas City. You know, 'cause when I went to New York, the people asked me where I was. I can't believe that.
If you want to get that, we can wait.
No, I'm so sorry. I'm usually good at that.
No, that's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
I'll make you feel better. I had my phone go off during the final prayer of my aunt's funeral. That was really bad. But she had a really good sense of humor, so I figured she was up there laughing.
She was laughing, yeah.
Yeah, she's having a good time.
Yeah.
You came from the stereotypical musical family. Your first instrument was piano at 10, and that was kind of your mom's instrument.
Yes, it was. Yeah, she played in the church for my grandfather. And then when I got older, I took over. And then when my Uncle Leonard married my Aunt Ann, who was a master pianist, she took over and played until she retired.
You kind of wanted to play the tenor sax because that was your dad's instrument. They handed you a clarinet.
Yeah,
How did that happen?
Oh man, the band director in 5th grade and my dad, they teamed up on me, and the band director said, Mr. Watson, it would be better for him to start out on clarinet because it'll help his saxophone playing, and he can always switch to saxophone in the 7th grade. And I held him to that, but I never stopped playing clarinet. But I waited, until when the 7th grade comes, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the saxophone now. And naturally, I went for the tenor first. And then when I got to high school, and still playing the clarinet and dealing with the embouchure and the sound, I gravitated toward the alto.
Your first public performance was Battle Hymn of the Republic on the clarinet?
That's right. Oh, wow. Yeah, Battle Hymn of the Republic in my grandfather's church. And people said amen.
And that amen probably sealed the deal for you, right? It was that level of like, well, they like me.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't, they didn't applaud. They just a big amen throughout the church.
When I was a kid, people never applauded in church, and now it seems like applause in church is kind of normal.
Yeah, times have changed. When I was growing up as well, they didn't applaud. It was just a big rousing amen.
Maybe we'll get some amens today here in the studio.
Amen.
There was You know, your dad played tenor, but he loved music, played around the house, and you mentioned you eventually got over to the tenor and then pretty quickly to the alto. But one of the things that kind of really interested me was that for the longest time, you knew it was music, but you didn't know that it was jazz.
That's true. I just was the kind of young person that when I was playing in concert bands and stuff, playing a clarinet, I would always add notes to the parts. And my band director would say, "Watson, stop padding the parts." You know, but I would hear these things, and I would throw an extra little diddly-do or diddly-da in there, you know, a little turn or twist, and because I was hearing it, and I would do it. And when I realized that years later that there were other people like that, and that I'm actually a jazz musician, so I wasn't crazy, you know? Well, to a degree.
You know, I always look for that thing that just I can hardly believe, and one of the early things in your life that really struck me was David King. He was a jazz drummer on the side, but he taught American history.
That's right.
And when he got his hands on you, American history turned into American jazz history.
Yeah, he did. The second half of the year, he turned American history to American jazz history and took us through the whole story from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, up to the 70s where we were. And we had text that he had bought jazz history books for us and took us through it and played records for us. We had listening sessions, and he explained the importance of each of the characters that he was playing, and also tuned us in to the story, the soap opera of jazz.
You know, I would think that, you know, it just completely depends on your high school administration. You know, they're either going to compliment you on being so good at engaging your students, or they're going to fire you. You know,
Yeah.
You're supposed to be talking about D-Day and the Magna Carta.
That took a lot of courage and imagination for him, actually, looking back on it, because he could have got fired.
He introduced you to Charlie Parker.
Yes, he did.
That was one of your first records.
Yes, after I bought, 'cause I used to watch The Tonight Show with Doc Severinsen and Johnny Carson. So I bought this Doc Severinsen record called The Arrival, and it had Clark Terry on it, and Arnie Lawrence, and Ed Shaughnessy, and different folks, Snooky Young. And that was my first record I bought on my own. And then after being in Mr. King's class, I got hip to Bird, and I went out and bought a compilation of Bird.
You know, you by the time you got out of high school, you'd kind of figured out jazz was the deal. And
Yeah.
you did a couple years of junior college, but Pat Metheny talked you into going down to the University of Miami.
Yeah, I met Pat when I got back to Kansas City, and he was playing out on I-70 with Paul Smith and Gary Civils. And I used to go out there and listen to them. They let me sit in with them and some other friends, Conrad Rucker, and we started listening to records here. And it started to get pretty serious. Put a couple little groups together here. Started playing some proms, homecoming parties. Things like this. Started moving out and doing some clubs.
Yeah.
You know?
You ended up going to the University of Miami, got a degree in composition and music theory. I'm just, you know, I guess that, you know, when you get to a signature program like that, it's going to happen. But it wasn't just you and Pat Metheny. It was Jaco Pastorius and Bruce Hornsby was there.
Bruce Hornsby was there. Curtis Lundy, Carmen Lundy, Gil Goldstein. So many. Hiram Bullock. I met Ira Sullivan down there. Phyllis Hyman. So many folks.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we're really looking forward to the show that's a week from Saturday, Jazz at the Gem. Opening up the signature premiere performance for the series is with our guest today, Bobby Watson, and we would love to hear some music if we could.
Okay. We're going to play a song that became Duke Ellington's second theme song, and it's called Take the A Train. A lot of people think that it was written by Duke Ellington, but it was actually written by his protege and musical twin, Billy Strayhorn. We hope you enjoy it.
That was really lovely. We would you like to introduce the people you're playing with?
Sure. On bass is John O'Keefe, and on piano is Christian Swan. Now, Christian, you're from Chicago, and you're from Chicago? Oh, he's from St. Louis. Yeah, John O'Keefe is from St. Louis, and we're really happy to have them with us in our program. And you can catch them around the city at various times. All of our students have just infected the jazz scene here, so you can see them. Almost every group that's out there has one of our guys or women in there.
You know, you've taken on that role of educator, and we'll talk about that in just a tiny little bit. You've said that jazz is a social art. And I wondered if you knew that before you were hanging around the Storyville Club in New York. Or if that's where that lesson really took hold.
Well, I knew it was a social art, and when I got to New York, that idea was confirmed, and so I knew I had to go out every night, you know, because the night I met Art at Storyville, I kind of had a cold and didn't really feel like going out, but I knew I had to go out, so I went out that night, and we've been married maybe a month. Pam and I came back home a jazz messenger. So the social part of it is very important.
So Art Blakey, he'd had this group before, and he sort of had this tendency to bring young guys into the group. That was kind of part of the deal.
Yeah, that was his mantra. Yeah. You know, when these guys get too old, I'm going to get some new ones, you know? So I kind of got kicked out myself, you know? I was in there about 4.5 years, and he says, time to go.
He was a taskmaster?
He was serious.
Taskmaster?
He was a taskmaster, and by the way that he approached the bandstand, that was the most important and most sacred place to be, was on stage. So no matter what happened that day or how long the day was or how difficult the travel was or how tired you was or whatever comforts that we didn't receive during the day, you put all of that aside when you got on the bandstand and gave it everything you had, 100%.
You know, you were with him just a brief period of time before he elevated you to musical director.
Yeah, it didn't take long. It was about 4 months, 3 months.
I mean, some of the other people who'd held that title, Horace Silver, Benny Golson, Wayne Shorter, not bad company.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a good eye for assessing people.
You were kind of credited with elevating that band during your tenure.
I would like to think so. Between me and James Williams, late pianist from Memphis, we wrote a lot of songs for Art. And then with Valery Ponomarev, first the trumpeter from Russia, and then when Wynton came on, as in Marcellus, and Billy Pierce, and Charles Fambro, we started taking off, doing a lot of recording, and we brought the band back into prominence.
You know, whenever I'm getting ready to do an interview, I try and create a timeline, and sometimes that's really difficult with somebody like you because you did so many things all at the same time. Mm-hmm. You know, things overlapped a lot with you, and I guess it basically, within a week of leaving the Jazz Messengers, you were forming Horizon, and you were touring with other people, and it just never really, you didn't have much of an unemployed period there at all.
Well, thankful for that. You know, I played about 2 years up at the Rainbow Room in New York City with Panama Francis and the Savoy Sultans, and at the same time working on the genesis of Horizon, and just trying to stay out there and socialize. You know, it's a social art form, and relationships are at the core of your success.
Was being the musical director of the, of the Jazz Messengers, was that what made you into the band leader, or were you going to be there anyway?
I was always an organizer, you know. I put bands together in high school. We started our first jazz band under my direction, and in high school, and in junior college, I was writing for the jazz band out at Kansas City Community College, and you know, I was always an organizer and tried to put things together.
You know, you were involved in so many different things: High Quarter Swing, Tailor-Made, Big Band, 29th Street Saxophone Quartet. The volume of your work is kind of staggering. 30 albums of your own. You were on 100 albums of other people. Over 100 original compositions. I think that one of the ones that would maybe stick out for a lot of folks is doing the soundtrack to Robert De Niro's A Bronx Tale. Mm-hmm. Did you work much with him directly?
I did, actually. He came to several of my gigs, and listened to me. And the part in the studio wasn't really that long. My involvement. We had this one song called "Bus Talk," which is on the soundtrack CD. And that's about 1:30 seconds. And the music that I did, because it was all source material, I think the main thing was I Only Have Eyes for You for that movie. So they used different ones, and they used Jimi Hendrix all along the Watchtower. But the part of the original part that got on there was when the bus pulled up and he wanted his son to go to the boxing match with him when he was hanging out at the social club. And when you come in, he has this radio hanging above his driver's seat, and you hear something playing, and it's me and the band, you know? So that got on there, and because then it morphed into I Only Have Eyes to You. But those 30 seconds on the film has done far more for me than anything else I've ever done. I need 30 more seconds. I'll be good.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. After all of that work, you made a really interesting transition around 2000. You'd been a teacher for a while, William Patterson University as far back as 85, Manhattan School of Music. But after 25 years in New York City, you came home to an endowed chair over at UMKC.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be chosen for that, and it was a great fit. I never thought I was going to move back to Kansas City, and to have the opportunity to lead a jazz department and kind of turn it around, to put some teeth in it. And as the years went by, I've hooked up with Dan Thomas, and we've been able to make some pretty serious changes. And I'm just very happy to be a part of that.
I love one of the things that you've said, that what you really want to do is build a program that doesn't just rely on your name.
That's correct. We want this thing to have a brand, so that after Dan and I step down, that the UMKC Conservatory of Music Jazz Department rings like other great jazz programs around the country.
And it's resonated in the local music scene, too. You know, the jazz scene is stronger than it's been in a while.
Yeah, I'm very proud of all the guys out there. And a lot of people moved here from other places and have decided to stay.
And you know, just it's attracted, you know, really talented, aspiring people.
It is. It's a good mix. We don't really have any jerks, you know. We have young people. Is that an oxymoron? I don't know.
So I guess the big question about moving back is New York City Korean barbecue, Kansas City barbecue.
Yeah.
Anybody ever ask you to compare and rate?
Oh, I love them both. You know, I was raised on barbecue with my grandfather, Jesse and Daisy Wilkes, John Jesse and Daisy. They had several barbecue spots around this area, Kansas City and Kansas City, Kansas. And so I'm used to growing up with smoked meat. And then when I got hip to a Korean barbecue in New York, that's like it's just another thing, man. It's just on the same level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your grandparents had the barbecue spot, but in 2010 you did the Gates Barbecue Suite.
That's correct.
So there was no competition there?
No, because, you know, Mr. Gates, Ollie Gates, he had been a supporter of mine since I moved back, and he comes to all my gigs and a lot of my concerts. And I told him one day, sitting at Gates over there on Main, I said, I'm writing a piece for you, man. It's going to be the Gates Barbecue Suite. And it took about 4 years or so, but he every so often go, how's my piece coming? You know, I said, it's coming, you know. But that was kind of the kickoff, because by the time my children got old enough and we're coming back to Kansas City, we drive back every summer, and our first stop would be the Gates. And even now, that's a tradition. When they come back home, the first stop after the airport, we drive straight to Gates, and they get a short end or a beef sandwich or a beef on bun or you know, like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if you ever need somebody to go along, it's kind of my deal too. April 30th, International Jazz Day, found you at the White House.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was great. It was like having a check mark on your bucket list, removed because I always wanted to play and be in the White House and meet President Obama. I met George W. Bush. He was a very nice man as well. And then I said, man, I told the Monk Institute, I don't care what you have to do. You don't have to give me any publicity. I just want to be there, meet the first black president. We don't know when this is going to happen again. And it was beautiful to meet him and Michelle, the First Lady, and all the musicians that were there in fellowship and with the intention of making a good night of music. And a lot of my idols and friends were there, and it was a beautiful picture. We took a group picture, and it resonates maybe even deeper now because there was jazz in the White House, and then we had the group picture with the president and the first lady in the middle of us, of about maybe 80 musicians, Chick Corea, Herbie Hancock, just so many, Pat Metheny, Diane Reeves. It was just so many, Chris McBride, and we were all there, Al Jarreau, Danny Glover. It was just like so many of us, actors and stuff, there in the White House, taking this picture, celebrating art. So I woke up, that picture means a lot. The vibrations and the love that was in that room. I do pray that with this next administration, they can adjust and understand the importance of the arts and that maybe they can have that feeling. But I know that those people, the Obamas, were true jazz fans and music lovers. So we don't know when that's going to happen again.
Yeah. We have a real gem in the Gem and the American Jazz Museum, and you're kicking off the brand new series of jazz at the Gem, and you mentioned a lot of names. There is a stellar list of performers. When I started going down the list of people that are playing this year, it's phenomenal. You mentioned Diane Reeves. She's going to be there. You played with her before.
Oh, yes. I've recorded
She's going to
with
be
her.
In concert here. Ramsey Lewis, Nicholas Payton, Cyrus Chestnut. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So really special, and getting to kick off that series as Kansas City's native son in the jazz world, it's got to be pretty special.
It is, and I'm really happy to be back in Kansas City. I've had a lot of chances to do a lot of creative things, from the Kansas City Symphony to the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra to the dance company here, Kansas City Ballet, and so many things that I've been able to do to express creativity and partnerships with other artists and other art forms. It's just been wonderful being back.
Bobby Watson is our guest. We'd love to hear another song if we could.
Okay. We're going to play something that I call the Blues for Peace. And it changes every day because what I do is I talk about the latest news. So I'm going to talk about the election on this one now, So, I'm kind of preaching. I'm just going to talk about what I saw and where we at. This is up-to-date news. Blues for Peace. Thank you.
Yeah, normally we don't applaud until after the song's over, but I know there are a lot of bursting hearts in the room right now waiting for the mics to go off so we can applaud for you. That was absolutely spectacular.
Thank you.
Who needs words?
That's true. That's why I love music, you know?
Yeah.
Music can say things that I can't say in words. I had a lot of commentary going through that one, by the way.
It all came through loud and clear.
Yeah, we need an app to translate what I just said.
Yeah, what's the Google Translate? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, we need a Google Translate for notes.
Yeah. If they do as well as the spell checker for my text messages, we're all in trouble, though.
This is true.
Bobby Watson, our guest, and of course, Bobby's going to be playing with his 18-piece orchestra a week from Saturday. The Jazz at the Gem Series kicking off. It's going to be a phenomenal night. You can buy individual tickets or you can buy the entire series, which is just one phenomenal show after another at AmericanJazzMuseum.org. Ticketmaster, another place to go. That's probably more direct, but all the information at AmericanJazzMuseum.org. And, of course, I can't let Bobby go without mentioning his 2013 release, his most recent, Check Cashing Day, celebrating the 50th anniversary of MLK March on Washington. And, of course, you mentioned the Gates Barbecue Suite. Mm-hmm. If Ollie was here, he'd say that the only way to listen to that is with a short end.
That's right.
And a strawberry pop.
And a strawberry pop.
A strawberry pop. It's the perfect compliment. And, again, if you want to just find out more about Bobby Watson himself, BobbyWatson.com. This has been just an honor, a privilege, and a whole lot of fun, Bobby.
Thank you, John. It's been my pleasure.
Bobby Watson, a week from Saturday, Jazz at the Gem. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. Peace, y'all.